Frans, my good friend
El-
Frans.
Haha,
How are you?
Elijah. Yeah. How are you?
We got to stop meeting like this.
Yes,
Yeah.
we can't go on like this. We have to
Yeah.
meet
I
live.
can't stand this long distance relationship. I need
No,
to be with you in person. What are you doing at the
yes,
end of November?
that's right.
I'm going to come visit you.
I know. I'm
So,
coming.
what's on the docket today?
Uh, well, I think the people wanted to know some things about
Yeah,
trauma and effigy, and
sure.
trauma and sacred Taoist movements. So, so what, for example, when you touch trauma on a deeper level, you touch
Mhm.
real deep trauma,
Yeah,
the reaction can be intense.
yeah,
And when you don't handle it in the right way, it can be re-traumatizing.
that's true. I've
Yeah.
seen it. When I had a center in San Francisco, so I had in the 90s and people coming through. I had classes twice a week and always people coming from other breathwork things where well, there was one particular method, we won't name it, holotropic breathwork, um, where they partner people up, right? So you partner up with someone who's untrained, and there was always some taking advantage of and that sort of thing because you're sitting there holding space with someone, you can get turned on or repulsed or whatever. And often uh, I was in the business of undoing what happened in other breathwork things, but ideally that's not really what should happen. So anyway, you were saying.
Yes. And my question is, yeah, you told me something about your experience. That was part of my question. But
Hmm.
does it happen during effigy breathing? Can
Well,
it happen?
a couple things. One, if something comes up in the breath, this is the most important thing. If something comes up in the breath work, that means it's inside you. And if
Yes.
you have a trauma inside you, that's the bigger problem because you don't want to live your life in a reaction, an unconscious reaction to something terrible that happened. I mean, and let's also be clear. There's big traumas and little traumas, and some of the more damaging ones are the insidious traumas of conditioning of day-to-day things, which I know is something you relate to because we've talked about you know the world, the way we think of
Yeah.
the world right now, and it's like that's conditioning. And I think a lot of that is in a good way sort of falling apart. People are questioning what they thought was normal reality. So that's one kind of trauma, and that can really take you off your path. But if you're talking about these big traumas like
Child
abuse
abuse?
or yeah, like a violation and tragedies, this sort of thing, like our friend Jim,
Hmm.
is he was at summer camp and at 10 years old, and uh, his father pulled over the side of the road to help someone change a tire, and a drunk driver hit him and killed him. So he's
Oh,
at summer camp. He gets a phone call. His father's dead, and all that way that's influenced his life. If that comes up in the breath work, it's a good thing because it's really memory is just energy, and it's memories like energy configured in a certain way, and if that configuration doesn't move, your life isn't going to move. And for most people, why relationships and career and certain things like that, they happen over and over again the same way, is because the energy's stuck. So we want it to come up, but what we don't want is for a person to lose sight of the fact that they're in the present and that they're not in the past and these things aren't happening. It's just energy. It's nothing to be afraid of. And, I will encourage someone to keep going because if you keep breathing, well, I'll remind people rarely, but sometimes it happens that a trauma is so buried and so intense, like sexual violation, that when it comes up, it's so huge that that person doesn't know where they are and they think that it's actually still happening. So recognizing that and letting people know you're safe, This is just memory. Keep going. We want to release that. That's really the goal. And to me, those are some of the most profound and life-changing experiences when that happens with people. So we want that to happen because we don't want to carry around memory as stuck energy. Yeah. Did
Yeah.
that answer your question?
Yes. And the answer triggered the following question:
Yeah.
Is there a I cannot imagine. I only done online breath work with you,
Yeah.
and you're coming now to the Netherlands, and then we do it live, and then you
Yeah.
can touch people, breathe
Yeah.
here, breathe through your heart. How different is that experience compared to online breath work?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, I did it for 30 years and then the pandemic came. I couldn't have never in my wildest dreams thinking that something that visceral and profound could happen online. And I remember the first couple times we did it, like if people were in the same town, I'd say, and you be that person's point person. If they have a thing, you'll go over to their house. Like I was really worried.
Ah,
But I think people tend to adjust unconsciously to their environment and only go as far as their soul's going to let them go when they're in the online thing. What's good about online, no traveling. As soon as it's over, just click off your computer and you're done. And because as a facilitator, I can get very involved with people. I would have relationships, and then people would be really attached to my involvement, and then they would do less work themselves. So I noticed that being online, there's a certain sense of responsibility that you have, and it makes it really focused on the breathing itself. But the part that's missing, it's the same part that's missing in our society. It's that human connection, that power that we have by being together, and like I think the pandemic furtherly separated people from each other, and we're craving to come back together. And I noticed that just being in the same room with people has been more powerful because we're valuing each other in a new way that I think we uh, took for granted before all
yeah,
that happened. But I would say, when I'm in the room with people, there's two things. One is I can touch, and also I can have individual conversations online. If I say something to you, I have to say it to everybody. So I can have very private, I can really modulate how my energy comes and where it's directed at, which you just can't do online. And the other is, yeah, like touch is a really valuable thing because one, it can create a lot of security and safety, uh, which is just letting someone know, like, oh, I've got you. And I have that way with my energy, but also, um, I think you will appreciate. I can. I want to say it in a positive way because I think it is positive, but I can be pokey. Like I know how to go in and out with people. So I might come over to you and put my fingers in your shoulder blades in a very specific way, and it will just move something specific. Like I I'm a lover in a very transpersonal way, but I won't stick around and like sometimes I'll hug somebody if they're open to it during the breath, but I'll do it for 30 seconds, not for 10 minutes. So it's not meant to be personal, it's just meant to sort of move the energy. And that's the part I like about being in person, is that there's just so much more that can happen. And also the group energy, it's so uh exponential. Like you
yeah.
get you get two people, then four, then eight, then 12, and like the energy just gets very, you can't escape going deep the more people there are. We had a group in 2018, 100 people. It was the largest group that I did. And it's just hilarious, like just how powerful it was. Like there was just a force of human consciousness opening up that is different with two people or online.
But how
So,
can you handle 100 people live?
um, well, In the facilitator training, the first year, I'm only training people to do individual people, because a one-to-one relationship, you have to do a lot of that to like really get comfortable with it. So group energy, I mean, this could apply to any business in any way. I'm just telling you my own experience with breathwork. But once you start to be more than one person, you you have you do you have to kind of like meet the whole energy rather than each individual thing. So if I have 2 or 4 or 8 people, even 12, I will go around and get to everybody. Even 25 by myself I can do. But when it gets over 25, there's just no point to go around, and you can't touch and talk to everybody. It's just impossible. So the you you let go and you trust, and then it teaches you something, because you realize, oh, like same way we can do breath work online, I can be with 100 people, and it will be okay. I mean, guarantee there's some people, if you have 100 people, that are gonna be upset about it, like upset also because they don't realize. I remember when we did that 100-person breath work, there was a woman. I mean, I didn't find all this out till after, but she had tried to be off in the corner. And uh, I went over to her and put my hand on her shoulder, and she just started yelling at me, like, get the F away from me.
Yeah, yeah.
And, and she said, like, she was upset because she wanted to be alone. She was felt invaded by everyone's energy. But well, then
Oh,
don't come,
yeah.
But what I found out was she had some abuse, right? And if I was in a smaller group, I could have helped sort of navigate through, like, oh, this is a memory coming up, like, let's move through this. But because it was 100 people, couldn't really stop, and I didn't know. And then I found out she felt violated, like she was having a violation experience. But you don't come to a class with 100 people that's people breathing like that, going into their unconscious and releasing it, and expect not to be affected by it. It's the wrong place to be.
Mm.
So, yeah.
But in a live session, all trauma start in your body. I know I did a workshop with Peter Levine,
Peter
and he's
Levine, yeah.
energetic
Yeah.
work, and yeah, in every place in your body is trauma stored. So when we are breathing and you walk
Yeah.
aside, and you can feel where the trauma is, so you can push somebody on this somewhere on the
Well,
body.
well, let me just back up for a second. So, you did a workshop, and he said, or it's your experience that trauma lives somewhere in the body. Just wondering, is this a philosophy or an opinion? Tell me, what are you
Yeah,
talking about?
I think he's right.
Oh, so
Trauma
that's what
is
he
stored
said.
in your
Yeah.
body.
Well, the body, the way I would look at it is, the you are levels of consciousness. Like before you're born,
Hmm.
pure consciousness, let's say. Like, so we have mind, and we have emotion, we have the electrical system, we have our energy, and we have the physical structure of the body. If the physical body is sort of the last place where all other aspects of yourself exist, then everything that you are and everything that's ever happened to you in every lifetime is has a memory in the cells of your body. Is it all trauma? No, because, like, well, I came into this life and my mom said I went crazy for Beethoven when I was 3. I mean, probably a past life memory, right? Like, I don't even like Beethoven. I mean, I like Beethoven fine, but I
Yeah.
don't go crazy for Beethoven. But but I think that if the body is sort of a metaphor, like, he's a pain in the neck, or I can't stomach it, like, the Achilles heel, like, we have all these sort of phrases. But I see the body as a uh, a symbol of consciousness, which is sort of how Chinese medicine does it. Like, the kidneys represent life or death and the emotion of fear. So I sort of, before I studied anything or got information about it, when I first started to do the breath work, I could just I knew, I knew because my life, I was a musician, just a normal person-ish, sort of normal.
Hmm.
I could, the world didn't really make sense to me the way it was because people seemed very fraudulent. Like I didn't necessarily know that, but I knew something was wrong. And then when I did the breath work, that was unbelievable. But then when I started to do with people, I was like, oh yeah, that's real. And so I do have a gift. Everybody who's a facilitator has their gifts related to who they are. And I think like Sarah, Sarah she just, my business partner, she loves to just get up in everybody's business. Like she'll lay down and like, she'll be like this cheerleader. She's very physical about it, but I'm sensitive. So in a certain way, so I can't do a lot of like just staying with people. But, I was a musician, so music's a big part of it, but I can read energy and I always have been. So I look at the body when I'm working with someone as everything that's going on has something to do with something beyond the body. And I
Hmm.
think that the beauty that you will hopefully see, because you're asking about online in person, like I'm going to be there for a week. So I have time to have those conversations with you and you in particular, because you're hosting me. So we'll get to
Yes.
have time to talk about things. I see all of it, but I can't talk about all of it. And not all of it's important either. But like, for example, you tend to do a lot of physical labor here when you're breathing. Well, what is this area here? Solar plexus, the
Hmm.
lower rib cage. It has a lot to do with um, willpower, fear, and various things. And it's like
Yes.
there's something inside your body that like there's you're making more of an effort than you need to, which is fine because maybe you have to make an effort and then you won't have to, then it'll soften, it'll ease up. But also, maybe there's just some sort of unconscious story in there of like, I'm in fight or flight and I have to run because the lion's chasing me. Like, so when you're breathing, you're kind of like working harder. So that could be related to a trauma. And so when we're together and we have some time and there's multiple breaths, like we you get to be the joy for me. Let me step back. We had our class on Sunday. I said I'm not doing 2-hour classes anymore because I want more time, because this is the work that I can do. If I have
Yes.
more time, we can go deeper. And that's where uh, we can explore stuff in the body. And early on in my life of breath work, I did a lot of stuff where it was like kind of curing physical illnesses and stuff. But it became less interesting to me later because I was more interested in the whole person. But people
Hmm.
with migraine headaches or chronic fatigue syndrome, or I had a woman who had MS and had been in a wheelchair for about 2 years. And we breathed every day for like 2 weeks. And she got up out of her chair and walked across the room
Hmm.
once. But she ran out of money and I was tired. Like it was a lot of work working with her. She was also difficult. And we didn't continue. But it proved something to me that the life force is can completely change the DNA in the body. And I'm living proof of that. I just said to Sarah this morning, we were just talking about physical stuff. Like I'm sick turning 61. I have no wrinkles on my face. But 5 years ago, I started breathing every day. And 5 years ago, I was still like struggling with stuff. And there's pictures of me and like I'm all crinkly and I look like an old man. And now I don't look as old. Well, I kind of do from the side. I look like an old bird.
Oh, you know, yeah.
Yeah. Well, even that's tightened up, but I've been cold plunging. Apparently, I lost a little bit of weight
Oh, yeah.
cold.
Yeah, you told me. Every
Yeah.
morning at 5:30.
Yeah. 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 I'll miss it when I'm at your place. My last trip, I'm wasting time here, but I went to this guy's place, you know him, and he does cold plunge and sauna as a business. So I got to cold plunge every day. And then I went to Kentucky with Sarah, and I bought her a chest freezer for her birthday. So she had a cold plunge. So my whole trip, I got to cold plunge every day, but probably not in the Netherlands. It's okay.
I don't. Not too far from here is a lake, so
Okay.
cold plunge
Yeah.
there.
If it's not frozen, sure, let's go jump in.
Yeah, we can take the bike. It's 5 to 10 minutes biking, so we see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else?
Mm,
Have we?
well, I have one other question about trauma. You
Yeah.
know, when people have PTSD or ADD or ADHD,
Yeah.
autism, is effigy breathing then suitable for that people?
Well, it's just loaded because, first of all, these diagnoses, you know, one, you could just say, are they all really accurate? Um, because we know that Western medicine just loves to
Yeah.
medicate. So there's that. Then there is, what are these diagnoses really describing? So there's just like, there's a broader question about that. But I would say my experience is, for one, the power of this work is in choice, the choice to do it. So I would never counsel somebody with some condition to do it, because it has to be something they want to do. And oftentimes parents will come along and say, well, my son is this, can, should he do it? If somebody decides to do that, and I've worked with people with all kinds of medication and conditions, and I've never seen a negative side effect, but I've always been careful. In recent years, as I've got older, I'm more conservative, like people with seizures,
Mhm.
bipolar disorder, stuff like that. And like, epilepsy, like, I don't know what's going to happen. But the last time I had a young man, he was 18. His mom was a client of mine. He came, he wanted to do it. He had epilepsy. He still had seizures, and that he sweated like I've never seen anybody sweat. And he said it was the greatest experience of his life. Like, he felt so amazing after. But if you're not, if you're not choosing to do it, like, that's, we have waivers, because I don't want to be responsible for getting in the way of the legal system and society and Western medicine. These are powerful entities. I'm not here to fight City Hall. So everything is as a choice. But I would say that if somebody has been diagnosed this way, or knows somebody, and they think, oh, maybe I want to bring them to this class, that person has to feel on some level that there is a better way. And if they do, and they want to come have a conversation with me about whether they should or not, I'm open to that conversation, and then for them to decide. And if somehow they come and they want to modify the practice during, or they need to stop, like, that's okay too. Like, we just have to be, sensitive about it. Also,
Yes.
pregnancy, like, if you're on bed rest, don't do the breath work, because it could put you into labor. That happened once. I breathed my daughter's nursery school co-op, and a woman ended up going into labor. It was fine. She had a baby and everything, but like, pregnancy, it's totally cool. My daughter's mom, she was 8 months pregnant and did the breath 10 times in 10 days, and she had a 2-hour labor. So, it can be really good, but we're not in the matrix. So everybody has to choose for themselves.
Oh, that's a wonderful line to end this conversation.
We're not in the matrix, or everybody's responsible for their destiny.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
Good.
I
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you so
See
much.
you
That was
next time.
fun.
Yes.